semester. It is a blessing and a joy to come together this morning, and we welcome all those joining us in the pews and those watching online. We come together this morning to praise the God who dwells in this world and in our hearts. May we feel the Spirit of the living God moving in this place this morning, and may we listen for the voice of God. As we navigate this new semester together, we have some announcements regarding COVID-19 safety. We ask that you keep your mask on for the duration of the service. I think the word of this past year has been flexible. So we are going to remain flexible to the ever-changing protocols that are needed to keep us safe. You'll notice that the choir is going to sing Masked and Distant. We'll start the semester by only singing a final hymn together as a congregation, which we'll do while we recess out of the chapel together. For any other music in the service, we invite you to hum along. We're taking all of these precautions because we know the Delta variant is so concerning. But we'll stay flexible with these things, and we may be able to do more as the semester rolls on. Fingers crossed. Best of all is that we are finally together again. Hallelujah. We bring with us our excitement for new beginnings, reunions, and coming joys. We also bring our anxieties, our fears, and our self-doubt. As we wrestle with the details of a new semester, new living situations, and divinity itself, may this be a place of rootedness, of centering down, a place for breath. Next week, we want you to know that we will have our annual service of matriculation, where we officially call by name and welcome our new students, staff, faculty, and administration. All the faculty are invited to wear their academic dress and join the processional, and all new students are invited to join the processional by lining up over at the School of Theology at about 10:45 a.m. The service next week will begin slightly earlier at 11 rather than our usual 11:10. And now, the Dean of Marsh Chapel, Dean Hill, will give an opening welcome on behalf of Marsh Chapel.
With thanks to our worship leader and worship team, the celebration and the arrival and excitement of our new Dean, Dean Pock, and her presence today. Friends, good friends all, we bring you a word of welcome. Marsh Chapel welcomes you. Its location in the center of campus, spiritual, geographical, historic, physical center welcomes you. Its Gothic structure meant to lift the spirit welcomes you. Its Indiana limestone meant to last hundreds of years welcomes you. Its open nave welcomes you. Its conic stained glass welcomes you. Notice that the larger the place of priority is given to people, higher and larger, and then to place, lower, smaller. So vocation first, location second. And the Dean of Marsh Chapel and the chaplains and the congregation welcome you to this exciting moment. We are here to support and help you in every way that we can through this service. Since the dedication of the chapel in March of 1950, there's been a 70-year connection between and partnership for an hour a week at least between the school and the chapel. We want to build on that and support you. Every corner of the chapel has a sermon in it. We are going to have a great sermon this morning. There's a physical sermon in every corner. I paused to tell one story. My son Ben, a lawyer in Albany, says, "Dad, when you tell a story you think is funny, you should let people know you think it's funny ahead of time." Well, we had a wedding here. We have a couple dozen every year of two who had met as seniors at Boston University. Because he from San Diego and she from Austin, Texas, each needed 2 credits. They hadn't met each other. So they decided to take ice skating. And they took ice skating together. They never laced the skates. For those of you who grew up skating as quickly as you did walking, they hadn't done it at all. And they went and they sat And as they said, we fell for each other. We fell on each other. We fell all over each other. The wedding, after the service, a burly uncle came through the line and said, "What's he doing here?" And I said, "I'm sorry." He said, "Yeah, Abraham Lincoln, what's he doing in here?" And I replied, "Well, I'm glad to meet you too. Welcome to Marsh Chapel. Bless your heart." And there's a story there. Francis Willard, about whom our colleague is writing the definitive biography right now, is a story too. Every corner has a sermon. Well, as I take my seat, as I conclude, isn't that a blessed word to hear? Finally, in conclusion, the word is welcome. The rose window behind, notice Jesus teaching an Eastern pose from 70 years ago and more. Around the rose are 8 petals, and those studying the New Testament will recognize that number because in the 8 there are the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Good friends all, welcome to Marsh Chapel, September of 2021. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Jean Hill. And now I invite us to come together, everyone, and bring your stories, and sing your songs, and share in the Spirit. Let your thought fill the air and come to life in bodies of sound, ringing out like a song to which the whole world will be dancing.
And let him in silence speak with 1,000 voices in tribute to our loving, living God, and in celebration of our lives, the precious gift God has given us.
Friends, as we gather together this day, both in person and online, may we know the peace of Christ. May we know good, strong peace. Peace that weathers the storm. May we know gentle peace that offers a caring hand to our world. May we know sustaining peace that keeps us moving through each day. Now let us open our hearts to one another on this day by placing our hand on our heart. Look around the room at your community, your friends along this journey, and offer a smile and a wave. May the peace of Christ be with you.
The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom I shall be afraid. When evildoers assail me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and foes, they stumble and fall. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war rise up against me, yet I will be confident. One thing I ask of the Lord, that will I seek after, to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. For he will hide me in his shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of his tent. He will set me high on a rock. Now my head is lifted above my enemies around me. I will offer in his tent sacrifices of joy. I will sing and make melody to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud. Be gracious to me and answer me. Come, my heart says, seek his face. Your face, Lord, I seek. Do not hide your face far from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my help. Do not cast me off nor forsake me, O God of my salvation. If my father and my mother forsake me, the Lord will take me out. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies. Do not give up on the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and they are breathing out violence. I believe I shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
I have to start with gratitude for the gift of this day and of this gathering, of this moment of realization that we could be anywhere right now, siloed in Zoom windows, and we're here in the flesh, and that the gift of this physical togetherness really can't be taken for granted. I'm aware of how uncomfortable I feel speaking without a mask, staring at a sea of faces from just the eyes up, of how I'm still trying to figure out what level and pitch and tone my voice should be at, knowing that I have not preached in front of anything other than a camera lens since February of 2020. I'm in a space of awe about what it means to come home to one's body, and that even after being at home with my body for 18 full months, there's something that comes alive in us when we stand naked in the presence of others. See, I usually begin, as most preachers do, with a familiar prayer that's supposed to get the sermon going. May the words of my mouth and may the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable and pleasing in your sight, O God, our rock and our redeemer. But I couldn't pray that prayer to start this morning. I couldn't get out this formalized script because it felt just a little bit cheap. Like the prayer couldn't just be thrown out like that anymore. That it needed room to breathe. After years of so many people not being able to breathe, and so my prayer this morning is just that these words, whatever comes out, might be enough to change the air around us. Even if it's just for a moment, change the air for the movement of the Spirit to do that thing it's done before in ways that we felt before but haven't felt in so long, for the sounds of the street and the shuffling of the person across from you to bring with them a familiarity shrouded in a new hope for what it means to be together again. This morning I hope to speak confidently about who we are and what it is we're called to be doing at this time. I'm steeped in the wisdom of Psalm 27, titled quite literally a psalm of confidence. Gone are the days of preaching mere suggestion, with a little rhetorical flourish sprinkled for inspiration. We need a word that is preached desperately, powerfully, with the understanding that it does know it has to matter. Listen, I'm aware that this world is in no short supply of confident preachers, confident academics, theologians, philosophers who really have no qualms about quoting Schleiermacher at the dinner table or refuting your claims, or telling you about yourself as though you didn't already know who you are or what you stand for. But what I'm talking about this morning is a different kind of confidence. A confidence required for one's own survival. Not a confidence that sucks up all the air in the room, but one that allows us to breathe again, to feel safe again, to speak in our own voices again, and to create something new and alive and awake at a time when death and decay cling to the very atoms among us. So this sermon is for anyone who cannot and will not forget where we have been and what we have been through these past 18 months, who acknowledge that something about the way our common life together has been constructed is fundamentally broken. For those who have no choice but to speak now, but to study, but to find a way where there is no way. This sermon is for that minister who did not want to be a minister like her mom or her granddad or his dad, but finds herself in need of forging a new identity regardless. For the aspiring scholar with a vocabulary not found in their textbooks, and for those for whom the work of translation is more than a language credit, but a way of life. The sermon is for those who are bold enough not to condemn anyone to some doctrinal hell, but for whom hell is not a metaphor either. For those who find themselves like bell hooks, turning to theory because they're hurting, aware that they cannot survive this life in any other way. For those who understand the pursuit of knowledge and pastoral or academic certifications is only secondary to the need for divine justice, who are digging a deeper well here, who are praying to find something, anything, that might make this life seem more meaningful than this world is making it out to be right now. I am convinced that our theological acuity matters now more than ever. Because while research studies may point to that decline in mainline denominationalism, Elizabeth Johnson's words still ring true. The symbol of God functions. In the White House, in school board meetings, in hospitals and COVID ICUs in Texas, the symbol of God functions in Texas, and in the minds of those who try to make sense of the floods in New Orleans, New York, New Jersey, in California wildfires. It functions as folks interpret the sufferings and crumblings of distant communities and peoples they will never know and never want to get to know. The symbol of God functions. And it's up to us to figure out what we want to do about it. I'm sure you've all heard the scoff, or the snort, or the eye roll when you tell someone you study theology. Right, there's this dominant conception that what we do here all day is we sit in classrooms with stained glass windows, we've got our Bibles open, we're sitting up straight, we're constructing visions of heavens, where those who follow all the rules and live the right way and look the right way and love the right way receive their gold-plated mansions with platinum walkways, a private chef, and unlimited resources in due time. But that's the precise reason I knew I had to preach from Psalm 27, when the psalmist says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage, because I believe that I shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." I believe that I shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, in the land of the living. Not couched in overly philosophical terms,
not between the lines of someone else's texts, not in the Greek or the Aramaic or the Hebrew, not in ivory towers or rhetorical academic sparring, but in the land of the living. In the land of the living, that means right here. That means for we who have been condemned to surviving a world that others have not. That means this place, this tangible, touchable, knowable place where golden mansions aren't up in the sky, they're in Beacon Hill, or the Seaport, or the South End, made with platinum bricks paved by the blood, sweat, and bodies of those vulnerable people Jesus called inheritors of the kingdom. Will your theological pursuit here be concerned with the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living? Man, does theology have a huge PR problem right now? We know it's been said that this Western American culture has a storytelling issue, one where stories and histories get subsumed by things like white supremacy and patriarchy and capitalist ideologies, distorted and named beyond repair, so much so that while these stories may speak of salvation, they function to keep people in chains. The revolution should not be sponsored by Citibank. It requires a divine kind of confidence to tell the story anew right now, and the story, it must be told anew. Now, this is not some practice reserved for PhD students in theology, meant only for preachers and poets and pastors in prominent pulpits. The way of telling new stories is the way of reclaiming what it is the world has taken away from us. Jesus Saves is a powerful, storied proclamation about what the love of God might look like when it takes on holy, sacred flesh. It's comforting, it's powerful, it's meaningful, until it isn't. Until it's plastered on a banner outside of a violent, white supremacist-fueled Capitol insurrection. The story might be the same one, but it has to be told in a different way. I think Paul Ricoeur calls it the second naivete. That distance between what you once knew to be true, but now isn't true in the same way, but must still be true. What it is a scholar's way of giving voice and a name to those things and experiences that we've already felt deep in our bones, that we already experience each and every day. This is our task as the people at the School of the Prophets, that there are stories that have been written about you and your communities and your traditions, spoken so often, so poetically, so rhetorically refined, that to hear anything different is not an act of unfaithful misinterpretation, but one of divine and powerful justice. It's a call to resistance. And what we resist is any story that turns our belovedness into the broken record of you are loved when you prove that you're loved. Yes. Of people saying that the toll this will take on your body is the price you pay for admission. That who you are is a product to be manufactured for God's political gain instead of the reality of your life, breathing new hope into a hopeless world. Here's the story that I've been told. And I'm reminded that as a woman, my female body is clued into narratives that my white body will not allow me to acknowledge. You see, this is the story that I was told when I was young. They told me I had to stay in love with books, and not just any books, but the ones where the damsel in distress gets saved by her knight in shining armor. They told me to stay in love with these books because there was no way that love for women could look like women learning to love themselves. They told me to read the stories of girls being saved by boys with big muscles and fast cars and good hair, of women being plucked up out of distress because they could not find the strength or power to save themselves. When I got older, they told me another story. They told me to stay in love with God because there was no way that loving God could look like loving the people around you. They told me to read the stories of God and humanity as humans being saved by a God with big muscles and a fast car and good hair, who would come in and pull us up out of our distress because we were not strong enough to find this strength within ourselves. We couldn't pick up ourselves off the floor if our God didn't do it for us. But now that I'm grown, and they try to keep us reading these stories to stay put, to trust that this passive waiting for a world that needs to be saved is the only way our collective body might live, to be submissive, to do as we're told. The only thing we have left to do is to stop reading and to start preaching the truth of our own stories. Will you consent to the theological stories that you have inherited without your knowing? Or will you choose to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living? This is the word of the God for the people of God. Thanks be to God that you have a story in you. That you have a sermon to preach here, that your life is not what they have interpreted it to be. You see, beloved, this world needs our help. Because if somebody didn't tell you that your body wasn't meant for the stories they made you read, for the stories they told you about love, for the stories they said that goodness for you wouldn't come unless another brought it to you, if somebody hadn't preached to you that your life is more than just a product for another human to consume, that your heart is more than just some gift to give the world, if someone hadn't told you that your very existence was not brought about for the benefit of some other person, and if only you could find whatever that person or purpose was, then maybe you would feel whole. If somebody hadn't preached to you, God loves you not for the gifts that you have to offer the world around you, but for the blessing you are to your own body that needs to hear God's voice well up from within in a world that seeks to silence, then we would have all been gone. We wouldn't be here. We could have never survived, because living in somebody else's story is like trying to breathe underwater. I need you to sing a song of confidence this morning, that you shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, that your work here is more than just a stop on the way to some bigger, better thing. I need you to recognize that preaching in your own voice again is not a given. It's an act of prophetic witness to what the Spirit can do in a world that tries to silence us. Teach me your way, O Lord, the psalmist breathes, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies. Don't give me up to the will of my adversaries, because false witnesses will continue to rise against me. They breathe out violence around me when the very breath of those around us becomes violent. Don't you dare give up. Hold on. Be steadfast, for we shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And if we do not see it, if we cannot find it, if we feel far from it, then we will construct it, write it, sing it, preach it, pray it, organize it, teach it, publish it, dance it, plant it, water it, seed it, birth it into existence. We believe that we shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, among holy, living, mortal flesh. So clutch to this holy confidence as though all of our lives depend on it this morning, because they do. And so we say, may it be so. Amen.
saying Shana Tova, Happy New Year, to our Jewish siblings. After each of the following prayers, I'll say God of mercy, and I invite you to respond by saying, make us a people of mercy. Now, as we gather today as a community, with joy and excitement, we also bring deep pain and loss and grief for the lives of healthcare professionals, frontline workers, and the many underpaid people who continue to put their lives at risk throughout this pandemic, and for those dear to us whom we've lost during this pandemic. God of mercy, make us a people of mercy. As we approach the 20th anniversary of 9/11, may we hold with tenderness the lives of those lost on that day, for the families who lost loved ones, for the first responders, for the deep wounds that ache anew for the people of Afghanistan. God of mercy, make us a people of mercy. For those in Haiti, those along the Gulf Coast, and our neighbors here in the Northeast and around the world who have been affected by floods and natural disasters that have been exacerbated by some people's abuse of the earth. God of mercy, make us a people of mercy. For the faculty who are yet again adjusting to the demands of teaching during this pandemic, for the custodial staff who are working tirelessly to keep the building safe for us, for us students as we adapt to in-person learning and being in close community with one another again, for the STH community as a whole, as we learn to hold one another's joys and pains, as we co-create an environment of theological rigor and compassion, of prophetic justice and pastoral care. God of mercy, make us a people of mercy. As we rest in this moment of quiet, may we be present to our bodies, to the bodies around us, and to the divine all around us. For all that has been said, and for all that we carry with us unsaid, God of mercy, make us a people of mercy. Amen.
Before our preacher gives the benediction, we want to let you know about the final hymn. We'd like to invite you all, after you receive the benediction, to stand in body or in spirit and sing the final hymn, which will serve as a kind of recessional. Take your time exiting the chapel as you're singing and use it as a time of noticing and beholding the members of this beloved community. Take in the impact of being together and be sent from this place in peace. Now for our benediction. So hear this good word.
May you move forward with the kind of confidence this world needs right now. May you find the voice that God has given you. And may you believe now and always that we shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Thanks be to God.